Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Bold Voices. I'm excited about today's conversation. We're going to be talking about funding. And I think one of the things that's really important about this panel is that everyone is from a different place in the world. And so
Mm,
I didn't want to ignore the fact that when we think about funding, how that's impacted if we're dealing with different cultures, different backgrounds, how that can impact how it turns out for our companies and how we can move forward with business, kind of going past some of these different barriers or beliefs and customs and traditions. So I thought it would be a great topic today.
that
It's
sounds
also the
amazing.
last week of vacation. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's my coworkers. That's what I call my kids. They are always up to just squeezing every little bit of time out of the rest of the summer before they start school next week. So, just be forewarned if you hear some loud outbursts, that's exactly what that is. No need to be alarmed. But I am here with my co host. I'm Lachelle Atkins, also known as America's Supermom, mother of 15 children, and I'm a vitality coach to help you navigate through the chaos of everyday life. So I love to help people transform that chaos into clarity and confidence with a smile. So I'm excited to be here around today's topic. And I want to yield the mic to you, Rochelle. Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. Yeah, today's show should be very interesting. I like the fact, like you said, everybody's from a different country. So it'll be very dynamic, giving back different feedback on how each of our countries work within regards to the funding. So that will be an amazing topic. So yeah,
Yeah.
man. As you all our viewers know, I'm Rochelle Harlington, founder of Roots for Success. My podcast, The Transformational Soul Talks, which I love to connect people, talk about their stories, because I always believe if someone's story is shared, it can support someone else in so many different ways. So let's just dive in. Very excited.
Love that. And we do have our other co host who's not here with us today, but she is actually traveling. She is actually going to be at a book signing in LA. So if you're in LA, you might want
Mm,
to click on her profile, see where she's at, because you might be able to connect with her in person. So we definitely want to remember to mention her because she is doing great things. I mean, if you really need to get a book out there with the message, I mean, this track record that she's having with these international best-selling books, you need to get on that train. Okay.
mhm.
So we definitely want to shout out Misty Lee Riston with Campground TBD Publishing. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, our guests are going to be here with us having this conversation about funding and growth and all these things when it comes to investors from different parts of the world. So we'll be right back. Welcome to Real Life Without Excuses. I am America's Supermom.
Yeah, I love how we had our own fall festival. Whenever,
Oh, yeah.
that was just too funny. That was fun.
Recognize who you are, what you'd like to see in your life, and who you'd like to partner with.
I love that. And, that's coming from a place of power.
She makes. I have written with women who have been through things I could not even imagine. You can tell the old story. Don't dwell on the old story, because most of your friends are not trauma counselors.
All right, all right. It just seems like that slideshow is just getting longer and longer with the things that everybody is doing in the network. So I just want to give congrats to everybody that has supported our panel and the things that they're doing. So excited for that. And shameless plug that we're having a Christmas meet and greet this evening at 7 p.m. So if you need the link, reach out to Rochelle and I, and we can give you that link so you can join us. But so excited for our panel today. And this conversation, I think for a lot of people can be a hard one when we're talking about money, investing, starting up something and growth. A lot of times that really is what keeps us stuck is not really comfortable about the conversation. So I'm excited for these gentlemen to join us today with our men's panel that we have once a month. And so we decided to dive into the topic of money and investing. So excited for you gentlemen to be here. And I think the first question that I would ask is, why is it so hard for us to talk about money when it comes to uh, getting investments for our business, whether it's a startup or we're growing and expanding into a different place. So we'll start with you, Michelle. What would your insight be on this? It might be a delay because can you hear us? Okay. So the question is when we think about why is it so hard for us to talk about money when it comes to investing, whether it's a startup business or we're growing and expanding. Why is it hard for us to have these conversations? Your perspective on that.
Just a second.
Would you like me to
You gotta
take
love
over?
technology. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So so we're gonna go to you, Lifesaver. Okay. This is real life stuff, y'all. Okay. So over to you.
Okay, interesting question, Michelle, and this is something very close to my heart because I do a lot of consulting with startups at different scales.
Hmm.
So, to answer the question, the principal reason it's going to be an interesting aspect that I'm going to talk about. Most important, the principal reason that it becomes quite difficult to talk about money, especially when it comes to funding,
Hmm.
is because as a startup or as a business, we never ask ourselves the question that are we fundable?
Mm.
And that is a very, very big question, whether a business is fundable. Now, in normal circumstances, if we take a general standard, a general roadmap, a startup would come in with an investment. Ideally, if we are talking about a tech startup or a product-based startup, we would talk about a minimum viable product is already there in the place, and there is a fair market response, and it's time for the launch. So the company would feel that okay, this is the time that the funding is imperative because this is going to take a step forward. Now, having said that, now the biggest block in that entire roadmap is funding is an external intervention in a business. Right. We are not talking about, when we are talking about funding, I'm sorry, I should have said that funding in terms of getting an investment, or if it's a debt funding, then we are basically talking about external intervention, external involvement in the business. We are talking about bootstrapping. Yes, still it's external, but leaving apart our own resident capital that we have, if we are collecting, funds from our near and dear ones, still a component of external involvement is there. But there are here we are talking about people who are invested in us as a person, or who are invested in our vision. But moment it comes, when debt financing or investment comes into the picture, what immediately comes up is the first thing that comes up is what are we solving, number one, and what is the scale of that solution. And these are the two areas that normally investors would primarily look into. Because if I say, for example, if I am an investor and if I'm looking at investing, let's say X amount of money, my first intention would be to understand the company that I'm investing in. What kind of pool is this particular business part of? Pool in the sense I'm talking about the total market that this business is a part of. Now, to make it easier to understand, I know I'm getting a little technical here, but let's say, for example, if it's a edtech company, it's an educational technology company, it's creating an educational software. So now let's understand, if we are looking at the US and Canada market, we're looking at an X amount of X billion dollars of market, and this is the market that this business is going into. Now, its scalability is dependent on the factors, primarily its product, the quality of the product, the presence of the product, the technology involved, and subsequently their go-to-market strategies, and their customer acquisition strategies and things like that, all taken together. Now, what I see is, yes, the company has reasonable customer acquisition cost, which is a very important thing for startups, because startups tend to be overzealous, about acquiring customers, wherein they kind of ignore the calculations of the cost of acquiring that customer. Because a very high customer acquisition cost, even I have a lot of customers, I'm not going to make money. I'm going to end up being a loss-making venture. So these are small areas. So if a person looking for funding is seriously looking at his or her business and trying to understand, yes, I need the funding for this purpose, but am I really fundable? Then it becomes really free.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the main reasons, and it even becomes more difficult. That is the part from when the business questions itself, and the second part is the business is aware of the fact that an external funding in form of investment or debt funding, what kind of questions it has to come face to face with. So most of the cases, trust me, I'm talking from my experience, most of the cases, startups do not have all the answers. And even if they have answers, the answers are not convincing. So in totality, that becomes the biggest problem when it comes to funding, asking for funding for a business.
I love that. You brought up some good points. And Michelle, are you able to join us now? Can you hear us and everything? Okay, so my question is, we have a lot of people. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's a global platform. And, there are people that if they're from a different culture, there could be some beliefs because you're not used to dealing with a certain culture that can impact your ability to trust, right? So you might just not be familiar with them, so you just don't have trust because it's like, I don't know if they're telling the truth or if this is a scam. I mean, anybody can be a scam artist, but sometimes these are some of the beliefs that are on some of these platforms. So how do you address some of these things, when it comes to moving forward with your startup and things of that nature? Because some people may really want to get into a relationship with you, but they want to be able to address these things, but what's an appropriate way to address it with being able to move forward and build trust? So that question is for you, Michelle. Did you understand that question?
Yeah, I did. I hope can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. That's a very beautiful question, Lachelle. That's a very beautiful question. There is something I want to say first of all. A startup is an incubator. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it is still it's still to grow. A startup has to have a problem to solve. So if you're already solving a problem, it means you have a track record.
Mm-hmm.
Following to what Mr. Patty was saying, the only way you can first of all start by attracting investor is you have to have had at least some level of results to show for. There should have been a problem. You've been trying to solve the problem. You've taken steps. You've had some results for you to be able to show somebody to even get the person's attention to start up with. Now, let's say you have that person's attention. I am in the Middle East. I'm in Dubai. It's a multicultural, completely diverse society.
Mm-hmm.
When you relate with the Arabs from the Middle East, it is completely different. When you relate with the Arabs from Saudi Arabia, it's completely different. When you relate with the Indian society, you have to know whether you're talking to what member is coming from what caste, how you approach him, how you present it. Now, we find ourselves in a cultural diverse society in such a way that true, it creates an atmosphere of not I will not say competition. It creates an atmosphere of it creates a hindrance as to how you approach people. And I want to give you an example. My
Mm-hmm.
brother started a company in Dubai. It's like 4 years ago, which I helped build. It was actually a basketball company. So what I told him was, in order for the company to grow, he has to suffer for the first 2, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for the company to grow, it's going to grow based on word of mouth. Word of mouth, why? It's the quality of the product that is going to talk. It's not you going on social media talking about it. It's not you going on the website and all that. When the product has been able to talk for itself, and then you get on a platform, you have a history to present. You have solutions to problems to present. And one of the reasons why we started the basketball company was because we discovered that, unfortunately, in the Middle East, there is a problem with special need kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem with special need kids. So how would parents deal with special need kids? How could you help bring them back to close to normal, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having played basketball to a certain professional level and having studied psychology in the university with a master's degree in psychology, he too had played basketball and had worked with kids with special needs with the Olympic Committee in Nigeria. I'm from Cameroon. But he was a professional that Nigeria had to convert and nationalize him so that he could represent their Nigeria. So coming from that background, we realized that if we had to merge our knowledge of psychology, of the human body, and basketball, it was going to help kids at least develop their motor senses. In that way, we started a company based only on solving the needs for special kids. Today, we have across the UAE 8 different locations. And a location has about 150 to 200 kids. Now, we were going out to solve a problem for special needs. We ended up teaching basketball through a variety of different ages and groups. We now had kids, we had the intermediate, we had the foundational, and now we have the pro basketball players. And luckily enough, from that company, we have been able to have 3 of our kids selected to the UAE national team, and which was our aim. But how did we do that? We leverage on starting to solve a problem first. When kids with special needs started responding to instructions, first of all, started being able to dribble the ball, started being able to become focused, their parents were the ones to tell their other friends who had children with us with those same special kind of needs. Like, hey, come on, I met some gentlemen over here who are able to help my child. And down the road, so many of them have evolved. And I could send you some videos and I tell you that that was a child who had special needs who could not hold a bottle like this when he came. 2 years today, the child is dribbling the ball and shooting the ball with the proper follow through. And you're wondering, like, what happened? There were some things that we understood that we leverage that we could help the kids with. Now, how could we get an investor to invest in the company? Why will it be difficult? And why will it be easy? It will be difficult to a certain extent because we need an investor who understands where we are going to with the company, who understands the vision of the company, who understands the reason behind why we are building the company. Secondly, it has been tough getting people like that because most people just feel that when they get in, the results comes like immediately. Most investors know that when they come in, the results come immediately. From a real estate background, I always used to tell investors into real estate this: when you buy a property, you give yourself 8 years to start even achieving an interest on the property that you've bought, whether it is rental, whether it is personal, because at least you need that time frame to be able to regain the amount that you've put into the investment before you start making a profit out of the investment. The profit only comes after you've gotten your base. So I think one of the most important things to be able to secure an investor for a startup is to be able to is for your business to be able to solve a problem. And like you said, Mr. Patel, you must know your market. You must see how big the market will grow beyond your current standing. When we started, he started alone initially. He had just 6 kids in one location. His training program never changed. It only upgraded. His philosophies never changed. It only became stricter. The parents were not to intervene when training was going on. You brought your child for us to be able to help him get to a man, for example. Or you brought your daughter to be taught discipline. Because I used to tell parents, if there is no discipline, there is no focus. If there is no focus, there is no direction. And therefore, we're going nowhere. So I believe that to secure an investor, you have to be able to portray discipline. Discipline comes from your mission of your company. You should be able to show focus, direction as to where you're going to. When it comes to direction, you should be able to have a team of people who have the same mentality like you. If not, more creative than you are. Because for a startup to really succeed, you cannot be the smartest person in the room. You should have people more smarter than you are.
Love that.
I hope I was able to answer your question.
That was really good. Look, I got a lot of notes from that. And we got a lot of people in the chat that are really engaged in this conversation. And I want to tell everybody, we're not going to have enough time to really go through a lot of this content. So please reach out to our guests and feel free to continue this conversation. But for you, Matt, a lot of what you're doing is very inclusive for different cultures and backgrounds. So how do you manage to help everybody to collaborate rather than compete with the mission that you're working towards when you're dealing with people from different backgrounds?
So first of all, I stick to what Michelle was saying, to never be the cleverest person in any room. I think that I do that very well. And then the second most important thing is to realize in the very sentence that you said, the key factor, which is people. Because people are our customers, people are our clients, people are our providers, there are commodities in some ways, particularly in my business. And people are our supporters and our friends and our family, our believers that focus on the things that we are interested in doing and the problems that we try to solve. And not just the problems that we try to solve, but the solutions that we bring that are hopefully innovative, because otherwise we're not really doing anything. We're not really making change. We're just pushing the same thing through a different sized envelope. And that doesn't really change the way that the envelope is delivered or what the message is inside the envelope. It just puts a similar shaped envelope through a letterbox. Solve the problem rather than what the problem is. And by addressing people as friendly and open, but with a degree of interest in them that is not just about your product, but is about the solution that it provides to them. I guess I'm a bit of an advantage in that, in the sense that my product in many ways solves so many problems that I can bring a solution to most of those. But by listening to people's issues, by talking to them and asking them questions about what it is that they need, what it is that they're interested in, and understanding that, only then can we relate to what their interest is and have that as a common bond, especially if your product suits that particular problem that they have, whether that be that they need to build their strength or their confidence, much in the example of the basketballing, or whether it's somebody like Subho who saves people's lives and has a very great functioning business that helps support startups to really clarify their future vision and things like that. I think it's always important to think about the people that you're going to be dealing with. And when you do that, that really enamors people towards what you do. Plus the fact of what I do kind of speaks for itself. You know that.
Love that. I mean, I think that really is good, you know, when we do talk about people, because we're not dealing with robots or AI or a lot of the stuff that we are now being thrust to today, and remembering that human component. So I love that. I'm going to defer over to, go ahead to you, Rochelle, for the next question or what's coming up for you, because I could go on forever. I'm over here taking lots of notes.
Problem. I think I'm just listening to everybody, and I think it's really interesting because, you know, the funding in different countries, how it works. I know in Canada we have a lot, in the last couple of years, we have a lot of funding that is also available for many small businesses. There are some hoops you have to jump through, but I think it's important to really support businesses that want to come out there, because it's the small businesses I find that really support the economy as opposed to the big businesses. If you could, gentlemen, if you could give anybody advice, if they're looking for funding, if they're looking to start a business, what would be, say, the top 3 things that you could say would be really important to do in order to get that funding if you're looking to start that business? We could start with, is it lightsaber? I'll make sure I'm saying that right.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, 3 questions.
Or 3 things.
Small,
3 things. Yeah.
Rashad, you said a small business, right? Looking for a funding, or generally?
Yeah, like a business that, for example, an entrepreneurship, what Michelle was talking about, when you're starting that business, because it is more of an entrepreneurship. Yeah.
3 questions before you look for funding. First and foremost is how am I going to use the funds, which is very, very, very important. Uh, we have observed that even by virtue of the projects or the product or the vision and or a combination of everything, a relationship with the investor or a networking, whatever be the the positive reason out of it, an investment has been achieved. Utilization of the investment becomes a criticality, and that is where a lot of businesses, because investments do not happen at one flow. There are stages of investment. There are stages of funding, and it's a it's a fairy tale that I need this. This is a launch, and I would get all the funding. It doesn't happen like that. It's more of an observing. It's observe and fund, observe and fund. That's how it happens in the real world. So utilization of funds. Where am I using that money for? The second most important thing is exit. Because if it's an investment, be it an investment or be it a debt funding, uh, from the point of view of my business, where am I looking at the exit? And how am I looking at the exit? Now, in many cases, the exit happens in 2 ways. Either the investor or the debts have a certain period of time. There are terms, set regulations. There are prepayment clauses and things like that. But but when it comes to exit, especially with investors, there are certain businesses who want to exit, or probably they have a plan in mind, a very clear plan in mind, where how do they want the investor to exit or the debt to exit. So exit is one of the most important second things, and the third and most important thing is dependability on the funding. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, how long am I planning to be dependable on the funding? That is one of the third most critical thing, because, and I will very, very strongly advocate this here, that it is very, very essential for businesses to start being dependent on the revenue that they generate rather than depend on funds to run their operations subsequently after post-launch. Post-launch, initial market entry, and then subsequently businesses should seriously focus on sustaining on their revenue rather than sustaining on refunding. So these are the 3 areas, very, very critical areas, that the 3 questions that I would always advise any entrepreneur to always ask.
That's good.
Okay, I've got a landscaper in the background, so if it's loud, I apologize. Over to you, Michelle.
Real life.
Yeah, real life.
You're on mute, Michelle. You're on mute. I love it. It's like bloopers. You know what
I was just pondering. I was just pondering on what Mr. Patty said. It's mind blowing, because there were, especially the exit. I never even thought about the exit. I never even thought about the exit, honestly. So when he talked about the exit, my mind went poof, like, oh, I didn't take that into consideration. He talked about utilization of the funds, which is very vital. I had written down some notes to that regard. Let me just read it real fast.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at increasing the traction of the business.
Mhm.
For example, I was looking at how you are going to demonstrate your company's values in real time. I was looking at presenting a solid business plan with a strong return on investment forecast. And then, most importantly, I was looking at how the funds were going to be put in place, how you were going to use the funds, right? And like he said, there was one thing that I learned and I enjoyed about being very practical about business. It was very important, the dependability on your own funds. When you work with your own funds, it gives you the leverage
Mhm.
to have control over the mission and the purpose of your business, as opposed to be dependent on foreign funds where they give you the conditions as to which the business is going to be run. And I believe most startups shut down or fail very fast because of that primary reason.
Mhm.
The reason people start up a business or a startup is because they realize there's a problem, like I earlier said, and they believe they have a solution. They start implementing the solution, and results start coming in. And the very first thing Mr. Party said that was very beautiful was startups. Startups are always overzealous, and that is true. That is true. The moment the results start coming in, we start seeing finance, we start seeing physical results. We have now a history to tell. We become so excited and overwhelmed. We become so full of ourselves that we believe that based on a 1 kilometer, a 1 kilometer run, and you'll be able to run 100 meters successfully. You just assume that because you hit the 100 meters successfully, the 1 kilometer becomes just like the 100 meters. But we fail to understand that that is 100 times 10. So when we amplify the problems that we could overcome for the first 100 meters by 10 to fill the 1 kilometer, then we realize that, oh man, it looks like we're going to need help to come in. But I believe if incubators could just be patient enough, like I said, to suffer for a time being and build a certain fund on which they can only have just a little support from outside, they will be able to keep their independence and they'll be able to achieve a lot more in the long run. So I
Well,
think those to me those are those are the answers that investors have to have at hand to be able to attract startups should have at hand to be able to attract investors in.
Wow.
I think
Those are
that's
great books.
one thing I wanted to add to that too is that really I thought was good when it comes to the exit is even, you know, not necessarily exiting from the business, but being open to evolving,
Right.
because that's one of the things that I'm running into just with my own journey. I started off during the pandemic, I was present enough to do a lot of interviews. I was on a podcast and now I went into TV production. And now I'm in a space to where it's like, I want to do other things. It's opened up different opportunities from book collaborations to speaking. And I'm not in a position to do a lot of the things in the beginning that I started out with. And so if you're able to really kind of take that, viewpoint, vantage point from higher up and saying, okay, what's my overall strategy? You'll be able to really address those things in real time rather than building up a whole bunch of something. And then it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to manage this? Because, other opportunities that are coming and not be in a position to really navigate through that in real time. So I love that you brought that up because it may not be a total exit, but exiting from certain parts of your
Yeah.
business that you used to run completely solo on your own. So I love that you brought that up.
I think that's important too. Yeah, definitely.
I'll just put in, something that Michelle said that, there are a lot of things, when she started off in the pandemic, she was doing a lot of things. Times were different, the space was different, availability of time was different, but, now things have changed. It just, came across my mind, I think when you're talking about evolution, Michelle, I believe it's a time that you have to look for someone who's going through the same storyline that you were going through at that point of time, and probably fit that person there. And I believe that's how businesses grow. Now that person, is taking care of that part of the thing, and he or she has to go through that story and evolve to the place that you are now. And then when she comes to your place where you're already somewhere else, then somebody else can fill her place. And I think that's how the continuation and that's how the evolution can happen. And like you always do, Michelle, I think here you have another way to change people's lives.
Always pivoting, right? I like to say that because you have to. So, all right, over to you, Matt. What are your thoughts on three solutions, 3 questions?
3. Yeah,
the number 3.
Yeah. Okay. So, number 1, I think the investment, and it really covers what the other guys were saying already, is to pay for the things that you do not have the time or the skill or the ability to do. And therefore, what you want to do is to get to a point where either you have then a team that can deliver those things based off of you've invested into them, and you've gotten to the point where fulfilling those particular roles or those skills provide you with the revenue to be able to grow your business. And if you want to pivot, I'd prefer not to pivot my idea. I prefer to expand upon it. But that's a little bit unique to me, I guess. I think investment is really about, you can't do something, you can't afford to do it, you haven't got the time to do it, you haven't got the skills to do it. So you seek investment for those things to come along so that then you can get online with the revenue that comes from delivering those parts of your business. Then, a bit like Lachelle and Subho were saying, it's about being able to backfill and think about a strategy that will enable you to keep tiering up and keep having a plan that grows and expands to fulfill what your customers want and need and desire, because that's how business works. It's off of what people want, and therefore they're willing to take part in it or buy it or use basketball to practice more often because they see the advantage of it or they see the benefit of it. Let's call it that. So delivering benefit is also what my business is all about, and what I think everybody's business should be about is delivering some benefit, some solution to a problem, but in an innovative and progressive way that enables everybody to see some fundamental change that makes their life better, and not just better in a small way, but a very demonstrable way that is judgeable and provable through facts and figures, so that then your investors, even if they don't want to exit from your company, they want to stay on board, they're willing to do that because you've already proved to them about their value of their investment is going to go up. I have a slightly different approach to investment. Like I have a very different approach to most things. And I believe that I can pull that off. We'll see in the long run. But that's, I think, 2 things. So that's one thing left. Sorry, I said I'm not the cleverest person in any room. That's because I can't barely count. So yeah. And then 3rd thing, most important thing for me at least, is you believe in what you are doing. And by believing in what you are doing and its benefit to people and its solution for people, and the progressive solution, not just what does it do today, but what does it do tomorrow? What does it do in 10 years' time? What does it do in 50 years' time? What does it do for all time? If you can work those things out And those things are progressive and getting bigger and bigger and solving more and more problems, then really what you've ended up with is something that people want and need and desire. And that is the way to build interest into your business, so that then people want to invest, rather than you begging and pleading them to invest in something that they feel a little bit, yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to work or not. Because you see, my business, there's people who like what I do. In fact, they don't just like what I do, they love what I do. In fact, people are willing to invest their time and their energy and all sorts of things just to be able to help it to happen. And that's because I don't think about today's problem only. I think about tomorrow's problem, and 10 years' time, and 50 years' time, and for all time. And that's the difference between a great investment opportunity and something that means change for everybody. And social benefit network, let's call that. Yeah.
Wow.
Love that.
All those answers, all that, so much great nuggets for everybody who's listening. Fantastic.
Yeah, and so I cannot believe we're almost out of time, but I think the last question that I would like to pose for everybody is, what character trait do you think is most important when it comes to having a conversation around money? What character trait? So we'll start with you, Michelle. What would your answer be?
Accountability.
That's good.
I have just one word when it comes to money.
Mhm.
Accountability. Can you account for the last cent? Because your ability to have a track down of how you spend tells me your determination to grow. Accountability is very vital. And it requires somebody who has a very level head. And most often, the most accountable people are the most stubborn. Unfortunately, they're the most stubborn people in the group. They're the most stubborn people. I have worked in teams and I've had people, the most accountable people are the most stubborn. They're the people you have to run behind all the time. That is their weakness. But their strength is their ability to give you to the drop of a water without even blinking. So to me, when it comes to money, I will go to the person who is most accountable. When I was small, my mom used to do something. I used to like peanuts very much. So I'll steal it. She keeps it wherever she keeps it in the house, I'll steal it. You know what she did to me? When she buys peanuts, she gives me to keep. She took all the peanuts, like, Michelle, you keep it. Whenever we need to cook or we need it, you provide it. So what did that do to me? It forced me not to steal the peanuts, but at the same time made me a guard for the peanuts for whoever had to steal those peanuts. Because if there is a shortage for that peanut, whether I took it or not, I take the blame.
Right.
So whenever I was working with people, or whenever I'm working with people on the team, I always look for the person who is always most stubborn. And I put him in charge of finance. Always. Because I learned it firsthand. And fortunately for me, so far, it hasn't proven wrong, because I always believed that the stubbornness was their inability to not want to do anything. They just want to benefit. So I put you in charge. I put you in charge of what everybody's livelihood counts. So
That
it's accountability.
that is good. Now, tell everybody how to get a hold of you and what you have coming up. Do you have anything on LinkedIn or
No,
any of
nothing
that?
on LinkedIn for the moment.
Okay.
Nothing on LinkedIn for the moment.
Okay. So
if you want to get me, you can get me on my LinkedIn. Hold up on Michelle Azumi Akumbi. I love business. I love people. I love business because I love people. And I love solving problems because I love money. That's me. Life is love and laughter.
Love that. That's good stuff. I mean, hey, we need more people like you, not afraid to have these conversations, because a lot of people can get stuck, with this mindset that we've been kind of programmed to be. Someone said in the chat that a lot of times it's taboo to talk about money, but I think it's like anything else. You need it to survive, to buy the things that you need in order to continue to grow, provide for your family, and everything else. So, love what you shared today, and so glad you were here.
Thank you so much, Mama. Always a pleasure.
Okay. Well, and so we're over to you, Lifesaver. What's your one word? Where can we get a hold of you? What do you have coming up?
Well, to answer the question, one trait, pure and simple, unadulterated, with no versions, one single pure honesty.
Hmm.
That's all about it. It does good to you, it does good to your business, it does good to your funder, and it does good to your network, it does good to the world. Just one thing. And to get a hold of me, I am learning things. I have my website here today below my name. So I initially put my WhatsApp number. I realized that neither can my name be seen nor the WhatsApp number, so I changed it. So that's my website. You can put in and I'm with that name, the big name that you see, Shubhapati Sanyal. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I engage a lot on LinkedIn. So I'm available there, and that's the website. You can connect with me through the website, and I would love to add value. That's what I do.
Mhm.
I love to earn value. I love to spend value, and I love to add value. That's what it is all about. Money is a part of that value, and it also has a lot of other things which builds up that value. And believe me when I say this, it's extremely fulfilling when we focus on value.
Mhm.
It's very very fulfilling, and it doesn't keep any scarcity in your life. And I'm talking about everything, physical, mental, material, and spiritual. It doesn't leave any scarcity. It does not leave any vacuum. So I do that. I earn value. I spend value, and I try my best to add value. I don't know how much I'm able to, but I put my efforts in. Maybe not now, maybe sometime down the line, probably I'll be able to add value somewhere. But that's what I do.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And I mean, this conversation is definitely, I've got pages of notes, so it definitely has helped me in a lot of areas. Just, from the examples that everybody mentioned, it just really helps you to continue to evolve. So I love that. All right.
And
So next,
I'm really looking at, hearing your expansion program.
oh,
Your business is expanding, and a lot more people getting there, and you know, I'm seriously I'm looking at that. I'm probably in 3 months' time I'm going to look at a much more expanded business at your end.
well, thank you so much for that. Because I believe that, we can get so much further ahead doing it together rather than alone. I'm just learning that. And when you're open, you have so many opportunities to collaborate and co-create with people you hadn't even imagined, you know? So just being open and not having a lot of
Right.
judgment, but looking to learn, I think that has really been a game changer for me.
And you know what? There are a lot of things that we had done before, which we cannot do it now.
Hmm.
Let somebody else do it,
Amen.
because we know the story. Because when we were doing it, we know the story. We know what we went through.
Yeah.
So if we are leaving that place, let somebody fit in there and let the story go on.
So
That's it.
true. That's my view on having kids. I'm leaving it there and letting somebody else pick up that torch.
It's about time.
Definitely have learned that lesson. All right, so Matt, we're over to you. What's your one word? Where can we find you and everything?
Where can you find me? First of all, everywhere on LinkedIn. I think everybody knows that. Um, so you can find me by just typing in the search box Kudos Miracles. You can search for Matt Allen and you'll see my picture. Bad to say, but yeah, you'll like what I do once that you're there. You tend to find that I'll approach you if you don't approach me. So yeah, one word. It's a tricky one. Let's just go back to the beginning where we were sort of thinking about why it's difficult for us to deal with this thing about funding, why it's difficult to ask about money. And that comes down to the fact that usually, and particularly true in my case, we don't have much of it. And the people with it seem to be the powerful people. And that sometimes is a difficult thing because we look at stuff and think, oh, these people are the clever people in the room, or they're the wealthy people in the room, or they've got all the power, or they've got all of this, or they've got all of that. And like I said before, I like to think about things a little bit differently and provide solutions. And I like to do that through having people on my side, because I think that I'm on people's side. And so what I believe in about money is relationship. A lot of my experience comes from sales and marketing and stuff. Let's just call it stuff because we haven't got time to get into my experience. But the thing for me is relationship. And relationship to each other, not to necessarily money or something like that, but being able to understand, back to my point before, what it is that people want and desire. We're talking about investors or funders as though they're some sort of magical thing that exists above us all, but they're not, they're people. And by having a relationship, by providing a solution that realizes what their problem is and how to deal with that, and not just them, but their children and their children's children and so on, like we said before, by explaining a solution that presents those things, money really becomes a little bit irrelevant because what we're providing is a solution to their problem as much as everybody else's problem. And by thinking beyond the fact of the money and more into the fact of how do we get along, how do we build a better, whatever we want to build, whether that's a burger or a world, how do we do that? How do we provide a solution that answers all of the problems, or at least attempts to? And if that doesn't answer all the problems, we build more relationships until we have enough relationships to solve the other problems by listening, by understanding, and by sharing, collaboration, like you said, by love, by value, by determining what's important for all of us, not just the people at the top. So I think by understanding relationship, you can understand where people are interested in their money. If they're interested in just getting a little kickback or some percentage mark on top of it, so be it. If they're interested in doing something better for humanity, so be that. If they're interested in, I don't know, I think it was toenail painting that we talked about a couple of episodes ago. If they're interested in that, you need to find that out, because that relationship is what's going to help you to trust them in the terms of you have a relationship with them, and also for them to trust you. And that comes down to the sort of person that you are and what solution you provide and what belief you have in what you do and everybody else. So it's a bit philosophical, but it's also very practical, because going back to the sales thing, when you trust somebody, you are more likely to buy from them. When you trust somebody, you are more likely to give them something. Take, for instance, you walk down the street and you see a beggar on the side of the road, and you might feel particularly philanthropic, or you might have some association to that beggar, and you might give them some money. But if that beggar is a dear friend or a family member, like any of you are to me now, you might stop and you might think to yourself, you know what, giving this person just a couple of dollars or a couple of pounds or 6 billion rupees, whatever that exchange rate is now. The simple fact of the matter is you're not going to do that. You're going to take them home, get them into your house, and look after them until they're back on their feet, because the important thing is to make them feel as though they're important because you love them. So a relationship really comes down to money in my eyes. So yeah, that's me.
Love that. I mean, that really is a great point that you're bringing up. And I think that's so important for us to remember that relationships do matter. They are important. You know, that's a foundational part of establishing trust and knowing and liking somebody. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. You have definitely enlightened us and given us lots to think about when it comes to funding. So we appreciate you guys being here with us today. Again, we want to remind our guests who are watching live to reach out to our guests. If there's something that they said that resonated with you, feel free to connect with them. You know, this really is a networking platform. Although we're talking about some important topics, it's also a way to expand our reach and network with other people that may know Lifesaver or may know Michelle, but we can all come together and have these conversations. And some of us
Doesn't anybody know me?
Yeah. And you have a platform that people might want to continue this conversation even further on, right? So
Maybe.
just thinking about how we can show up and support each other more so than just this time right now in this hour. There are so many ways that we can collaborate and co-create innovative solutions, as you mentioned, Matt. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Michelle.
You are so welcome. And we look forward to y'all coming back again because I love the men's panels. You know, we have some great content.
We do.
Yeah. I mean, you guys bring up a lot of these hard topics, and it's a great
Different aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I always say, you know, we've heard this in a different version, but right now, I always say that as long as we are women enough to voice it out, you know, we keep on saying, be man enough to do it. So I say, be woman enough to voice it out. So let's hope we are woman enough to voice it out.
Love that. Love that.
There is always some lesson to be had from Lifesaver.
Yeah, seriously. You know,
You are sweet, Matt.
You're the woman, baby. You're the woman.
I wish.
I always have to bring a little laughter before we go. It's been a little bit serious today, so I just thought I'd just add something in.
Oh, God.
You open that door for me. Well, that's the man. Well, sometimes it's a woman. So anyway, like before that gets difficult. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We'll see y'all the next time. Okay. Thank y'all so much for being here. I love it. I mean, that really was a good conversation. Seriously, I have lots of notes. It's crazy.
There's so many good little, like I said before, nuggets of things to do. I especially liked, even you brought up the thing about exiting, because you don't really have to exit. You know, you can pivot, change, shift. And, you know, we both have had this conversation where your business starts to shift and morph in a different way. It doesn't mean you're going to exit from the business. It means you're just going to adapt and change and grow, and new people come into your life. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, great points all around. So, you know, that was really your key takeaway, you think?
I think so. For me, that resonated, I think, the best with me, because sometimes we get to a point in our life, in our business as entrepreneurs, and we think, oh, is this it? Am I done? Should I just get out? And I can say, no, you pivot. You know, you kind of leave stuff. Okay, well, maybe I don't need to do that anymore, but I'm going to take it to the next level on this. And I'm going to switch it over to here. Much like you said, from podcasting to TV, from here, speaking to doing this, you know, I mean, both of us had that conversation. You know, for me, especially in 2020, when COVID happened, I went from speaking on stages at events and I had to like, oh, is it over? Is it done? And then I had that conversation with you and you were like, well, yeah, you can do a podcast. And I thought, oh, well, that's a great idea. Then I can bring the same thing, but I can pivot, and I'm still connecting with people, even though we were in all these lockdowns all over the world. So there's a good example of the business is still strong and it's pivoted slightly.
Yeah. I love that. You know, I think my takeaway was the point about building up your business with the word of mouth. I think a lot of people, we get this idea of how we feel like we're solving a problem, and we're so tunnel vision about it that we don't realize about creating the word of mouth or the case studies. And so you can feel like you're really passionate and putting a lot of time and energy in your business that still has you at ground zero if you're not conscious of the things that you should be putting your time in. Maybe you should only be on one social media platform and building up an audience rather than trying to be 1,000 different places and not getting any reach. You know what I mean? I think it could really help you make some better decisions overall. So that was one of the things that I thought was a game changer too.
That's a great takeaway. That is so true, because I think we try to cover all the bases, but sometimes when we focus, and I want to shout out to Misty, because if you remember, Misty was like, I'm not that great on social media, so I'm not going to try and do LinkedIn and Instagram and all those things. I'm just going to focus on Facebook and Facebook Reels. And she blew up. And it's because she was consistent. And that's another thing, is the consistency, like you said. Consistent. And eventually that consistency pays off. So.
And I mean, she really has been blowing up. Seriously.
She has.
But I think you know why? Because you know what your limits are. And she is still able to navigate her energy to what she does best, which is compiling these books. I mean, I'm like, we're talking different collaborations back to back with different authors and international bestsellers. I'm just like, she really has a method that's working. But I think understanding what your limits are and working through those and not being self-conscious about it, not feeling like you do have to do everything. So I think that was great too. So what's going on with you this week? Anything new?
I have a new podcast, but that comes out next week. But I'm still in the putting it all together with a wonderful man and I'll shout him out, Tyler, who is actually on LinkedIn here. And he is actually in Canada, and he was a pro boxer. His son has autism, and so he's doing a whole bunch of stuff to support that cause, as well as just being a wonderful dad. So he's coming on my podcast. Well, he was on my podcast, and his show will be out next week. And just making it through the Canadian summer of hot, cold. I don't think we know what we're doing. One day it's like cool, and then the next day it's like it feels like it's like a rainforest. So
I feel you on that. We go through that in the same day, right? It starts off cool, and then you're burning up halfway through, and it's raining, and so all these seasonal changes in one day. So I definitely can relate to that.
So. And what about you? What have you got coming up this week?
We have our last week that we're doing the greatest salesman in the world. So Paul is going to be reading his 11th scroll that he wrote. That's going to be going on Thursday. And then I have a new series that I started on Fridays. It's an audio room, and it's called Weekend Strategy. And I've had the same guest for 2 weeks. We've been talking about parenting and entrepreneurship. And so he is a content creator. So we come from this idea of being a father and navigating through, doing his work and how that shows up with parenting. So that's really what I've got going on. So, but I'm excited about tonight. We have our meet and greet for Christmas in July. I was up to like midnight watching movies with my kids, Christmas movies. So it's a thing now. I did this for the first time last year. So now it's a thing that we're watching these Christmas movies until Christmas. So
with the air conditioning on, because because
so
it's too hot outside.
It's so crazy. Yeah. So hopefully I'll have a few decorations up tonight for our meet and greet. Okay. Or at the least have on some kind of Christmas garb. So
all right.
But I'm excited about tonight, though. My daughter's going to come and sing again, so we're excited about that. Not sure how many songs and what that's going to look like, but she'll be festive for tonight's event. So looking forward to it.
Me too. It'll be fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I love everybody who mentioned comments. Your input has been valuable. It's that insight that really, as we go through later on and read those, that helps us to continue to move the ball forward, to continue to grow. It also gives us talking points that we can connect with other guests. If you would like to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to have you. We are excited about our audio room. We're going to have an audio room next week, actually, kind of going into this whole thing of seeing what that's like. So that's going to be a new thing for us. We're still going to do the videos, but we just thought we'd try this out and see how it goes. So looking forward to that next Tuesday. We're going to be in audio. So I think that is pretty much it. Want to tell everybody, have an amazing day. If you do have time on your schedule, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have a meet and greet on Zoom. So you got to connect with us so you can register and join us on these video boxes where we can have a virtual connection and get to see what we can do to support you as the Christmas holiday fastly approaches. Okay, that's all I want to say about that.
As I'm sitting here sweating, I'm like, oh, I could do with some cool air right about now.
So everybody have an amazing day, and we will see you guys next time.